Think back just 5 years. You walked into a grocery store, filled your cart, paid the bill, and did not think twice about it. Today, you do the same thing. Same store, same cart, same job, and somehow it costs more. Not because you are buying luxury items, not because you are spending recklessly, but because the money in your wallet quietly changed while you were not looking. Your paycheck did not collapse. The shelves are not empty. There is no official crisis on the news. And yet, every single month, your money buys less. This is not bad luck. It is not temporary. And it is not happening by accident. This isn't just a bad patch in the economy that will fix itself in a year. It's a permanent pay cut you never agreed to. It is a silent erosion of your future, even if you do everything right. And the most disturbing part is this. Most people will not realize what is happening until they look back and wonder how a decent income turned into a constant struggle. Today, we are going to break down why your money feels like it is expiring and the 11 forces quietly draining purchasing power from the middle class, month after month, year after year.
Oh, God.
1. The great nominal illusion of the six-figure dream. Let us play a game of perspective. Imagine you are a middle-aged professional who has spent 20 years climbing the corporate ladder in a city like Dallas or Atlanta. You did everything the American system asked of you. You earned your degrees, you worked the overtime, and you finally reached a salary of $100,000 a year. On paper, you are a success story. You are in the top tier of earners globally. But when you sit down to do your monthly budget, you feel a sense of profound confusion. You look at your bank account and realize that your six-figure income today buys the exact same lifestyle that $52,000 bought in the year 2004. You are earning twice as many dollars, but you are living the same life as a person with half your income 20 years ago. This is the great nominal illusion. We are conditioned to look at the numbers on our screens, but we ignore the disappearing utility of each individual unit of currency. The government tells you that inflation is under control at 3 or 4%, but they are using a basket of goods that often excludes the very things you need to survive and thrive. When the price of an asset like a home or a college education triples, while your salary only grows by 50%, you are not getting richer. You are experiencing a massive, silent pay cut. This creates a state of permanent psychological exhaustion where the finish line keeps moving further away no matter how fast you run. 2. The subtle shift toward smaller portions and lower quality. If you walk through the aisles of a major supermarket today, you are witnessing a subtle transformation in the products we buy. Brands have noticed that the average consumer is hyper-focused on the price tag, but rarely checks the weight or the volume of the contents. So instead of raising the price of a jar of pasta sauce from $4 to $6, which would cause an outcry, they quietly adjust the portions. They keep the price at $4, but remove 4 ounces of the sauce. They redesign the packaging with clever indentations to hide the missing mass. They put more air in the bags of chips. This is not a conspiracy, but an economic survival tactic that leaves you with less. It goes beyond the size of the box. It is an invisible drop in quality. Your clothes are made with thinner fabrics that wear out in 6 months instead of 6 years. Your appliances are built with cheap plastic gears instead of metal ones, ensuring they end up in a landfill just as the warranty expires. We have transitioned from an industrial powerhouse that built products to last a lifetime to a service economy that builds products to last until the next model comes out. You are paying the same premium prices for a world that is becoming increasingly hollow and cheap. This is a form of deindustrialization that happens at the household level. We are surrounded by more stuff than our grandparents had, but that stuff is worth less and breaks faster, forcing us back into the cycle of spending money that is losing value by the hour. It is a treadmill of consumption where you have to buy the same items twice as often just to maintain a basic standard of living. 3. The housing paywall and the end of the starter home. There was a time in America when a single income from a blue-collar job could buy a 3-bedroom house in a safe neighborhood. That era is officially a museum exhibit. Today, we have reached a point where housing has been turned from a human necessity into a speculative financial instrument for the global elite. But the real shift is even more impactful than just rising prices. Over the last decade, and according to multiple housing market reports since 2020, large institutional investors backed by Wall Street capital have moved aggressively into the residential real estate market. They are not just buying office buildings or commercial strips anymore. They are outbidding young families for modest starter homes using an endless supply of cheap capital and sophisticated data algorithms. They are turning the American dream into a subscription service where you never truly own the roof over your head. When Wall Street-backed institutional real estate funds buy 1,000 homes in a single zip code, they create a permanent floor for prices that no average worker can compete with. You are now competing for a place to live against a corporate entity that does not need to sleep, does not need a local school district, and does not care about the community. This has created a housing paywall that is locking an entire generation out of the middle class. If you do not already own property, the ladder has been pulled up. You are forced to pay half your income to a landlord, which means you have no capital left to invest in your own future. This is a massive transfer of wealth from the productive young to the stagnant institutional power centers. It is the death of the neighborhood and the birth of the permanent renter class. 4. The $38 trillion debt bomb and the interest trap. Let us talk about the national credit card because it is the primary reason your grocery bill is so high. As of 2025, the United States national debt has now topped about $38 trillion, a record high in history. Most people hear that number and their eyes glaze over because it feels abstract. But it is very real. To put it in perspective, the interest payments on that debt alone are now costing more than the entire national defense budget. We are spending more money to pay for the mistakes of the past than we are spending to protect the country in the present. This is a mathematical death spiral. The government cannot possibly pay this money back through honest taxes because that would cause a total economic collapse. So, they choose the only other option. They print the money. When the central bank creates trillions of new dollars out of thin air to fund government deficits, they are diluting the value of every dollar you have earned through your labor. It is a silent default. They are not coming to your house to take your money. They are simply making the money in your pocket worth less. This is why you feel poorer even when the stock market is at an all-time high. The stock market is reflecting the inflation of the currency, while your wages are reflecting the stagnation of the real economy. 5. The credit card life support system. Because the American middle class can no longer afford its life on its salary alone, it has turned to the most expensive form of debt in human history. Total American credit card debt has officially crossed the $1 trillion mark. We are sustaining a first-world lifestyle on a third-world balance sheet. This is the credit card life support system. People are using high-interest revolving debt to pay for the basics, gas, groceries, and utility bills. When you pay for a $40 steak with a credit card and only pay the minimum balance at 24% interest, that steak eventually costs you $80. You are cannibalizing your future earnings just to survive the present month. This creates a psychological trap of permanent indentured servitude. You are no longer working for yourself or your family. You are working for the interest department of a major bank. The banks are the only ones winning in this environment because they are lending you the very currency that is being devalued, but they are charging you a premium to use it. This debt is the reason why the economy looks stable on the surface. Consumer spending stays high because the credit is still flowing, but underneath, the American consumer is hollowed out and one missed paycheck away from total ruin. 6. The health and education tax hellscape. In many parts of the world, people complain about high taxes, but they receive world-class services in exchange. In the United States, we have managed to create a system where we pay high taxes and still have to pay for the basics out of our own pockets. We are living in a health and education tax hellscape. To get a degree that is now required for even basic entry-level jobs, a young American must often take on $50,000 or $100,000 in student loan debt. This is a debt that cannot be escaped through bankruptcy. It is a financial shadow that follows you into your 40s. Then, once you enter the workforce, you are forced into a healthcare system that is the most expensive and inefficient on the planet. Even with insurance, a single medical emergency can lead to a bill that equals an entire year of salary. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans is currently pursued by a collection agency for medical debt. We are paying luxury prices for a social contract that is failing to provide basic security. This is the invisible tax that prevents the American middle class from building real wealth. You are not just saving for a rainy day, you are saving to pay for a system that has inserted a middleman between you and every basic human need. 7. The unsustainable demographic structure of the pension system. For 80 years, the unspoken promise of American life was that if you worked hard and paid your taxes, the government would take care of you in your old age. But that promise was built on a demographic reality that no longer exists. Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. The money taken from your paycheck today is not being saved in a personal vault for your future. It is being wired directly to a retiree right now. In the 1950s, there were 16 workers for every 1 retiree. Today, that ratio has collapsed to less than 3 workers for every 1 retiree. And according to long-term projections, it is heading toward the low 2s. The math is brutal and unforgiving. By the middle of the next decade, the trust funds are projected to be depleted. This does not mean the system will stop, but it means that the government will have to choose between cutting benefits by roughly 25% or printing even more money to fill the gap. Either way, the worker loses. If they cut benefits, you are poorer in your old age. If they print money, the resulting inflation will make your benefits buy significantly less at the store. This has created an intergenerational burden where the young are taxed heavily to support a system that likely won't be there to support them in the same way when their time finally comes. It is a structural crisis that makes the working population feel poorer with every single contribution. 8. The internal brain drain and the stagnation of real-world innovation. America used to be the place where the most brilliant minds in the world came to build massive, physical things. We built the Hoover Dam, the interstate highway system, and the Apollo rockets that took us to the moon. Now look at where our smartest people are going today. They are not going into civil engineering, nuclear physics, or manufacturing in the same numbers. They are going to Wall Street to build high-frequency trading algorithms that shave microseconds off of trades to move existing wealth around. They are going to Silicon Valley to build apps that make people stay on their screens for 5 minutes longer just to sell more advertising space. We have financialized our entire culture, and this is a form of internal brain drain. When the most intelligent people in the country are dedicated to moving money from point A to point B rather than creating new physical value, the economy becomes a zero-sum game. This is why our physical bridges are left to rust while trivial smartphone apps receive billions of dollars in venture capital funding. You can see the result in your daily life. Our airports are outdated, our power grid is increasingly fragile, and our public transportation is a relic of the past compared to the systems in Europe or Asia. We have amazing digital entertainment to distract us from the decline, but our physical reality is stagnating. This creates a permanent ceiling on how wealthy we can actually be as a nation. It does not matter how many digital tools you have if the real world around you, the roads you drive on, and the energy you use is becoming more expensive and less reliable every single year. 9. The declining maintenance of public services and the rise of a two-tier society. As the money buys less, the government finds it harder to maintain the basics. You see it in the potholes that are never filled, the public schools that fail to teach basic math, and the rising crime in major urban centers. Because the state is buried under debt and pension obligations, it has stopped investing in the common good. This has led to the rise of a two-tier society. If you have enough money, you can opt out of the decline. You send your children to private schools, you live in gated communities with private security, and you use private healthcare clinics. You are essentially living in a first world country that is nested inside a crumbling one. But for the middle class and the poor, there is no escape. They are stuck with the budget version of America while paying first-class taxes. This is the death of the American social fabric. When the public spaces are no longer safe or functional, people lose their sense of belonging to a unified nation. They start to see their neighbors as competitors for a shrinking pool of resources. The equality that is carved into our monuments is starting to look less like a promise and more like a cruel joke. 10. The world champions of financial anxiety and psychological decay. If you want to see the real impact of the disappearing dollar, look at the faces of people in any American city. We are living through an epidemic of stress and despair. Year after year, polls show that Americans are among the most anxious people on the planet. This is not because we are lazy. It is because we are living in a state of constant financial PTSD. When you do not know if you can afford your rent next year, your brain stays in a permanent state of fight or flight. This is the hidden tax of inflation, the loss of mental peace. This anxiety fuels the political polarization that is tearing the country apart. People are angry, and they are looking for a villain. They blame the other political party, they blame immigrants, they blame the rich, or they blame the poor. But the real villain is the silent erosion of the currency that underpins everything they do. This pessimism becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. People stop taking risks, they stop starting businesses, and they stop having children. A country that is afraid of its own shadow cannot lead the world. America is currently trapped in a cycle of grievance that makes it impossible to unite and fix the structural problems that are causing the decline. 11. The canary in the coal mine for the Western world. Before you think this is just a localized American problem, you need to understand that the United States is the final domino. For nearly a century, the American dollar has been the bedrock of the global financial system. Because we could print the world's reserve currency, we could export our inflation to the rest of the planet. But the rest of the planet is starting to notice. Nations are beginning to trade in other currencies. They are buying gold at record rates. If the dollar loses its status as the global anchor, the American standard of living will collapse in a way that is difficult to describe. We will no longer be able to trade paper for the world's oil, minerals, and labor. We will be forced to live within our means for the first time in 70 years, and we have no idea how to do that. We have gutted our factories and sold off our assets. We are a superpower built on a foundation of consumption and credit. If the world stops believing in the American dollar, the party is over. We are currently the test case for whether a wealthy democracy can survive the total debasement of its currency. So, is the American dream officially dead? Is it destined to become a sprawling landscape of luxury towers surrounded by a sea of struggle? Not necessarily. America has a long history of pulling itself back from the brink. This is a country that survived a civil war, a Great Depression, and 2 world wars. There is a spirit of resilience and innovation in the American people that should never be underestimated. There are still people building, creating, and fighting for a better future. But the math is relentless, and it does not care about our feelings. The $38 trillion is real. The housing paywall is real. The shrinking of the middle class is a documented fact. We are currently living on borrowed time and borrowed money. The illusion of wealth is being maintained by a printing press that is running out of credibility. The question is not if a massive correction is coming. The question is whether we will be the ones to lead that correction or whether it will be forced upon us by the cold reality of the market. And for you, the lesson is simple. Don't let the flags and the patriotic speeches distract you. Look at the hard numbers of your own life. Look at how much of your time and your energy you are trading for a currency that is losing its value while you sleep. Look at the debt of your nation and realize that you and your children are the ones who will be asked to pay the bill. If you want to understand why this is happening globally, watch this next. Why every country is broke at the same time and the $300 trillion problem no one can fix. If you're starting to realize that the promise of a stable economic future may have been an illusion, a like helps this work reach those who are still holding on to it. See you in the next one.